Hello again and welcome back. I hope you're having a great week. I wanted to share with you a technique today to create northern lights with ink blending, and I have a whole bunch of different colors of distress inks which I will list below as well as over on my blog, so go ahead and check those out. Today's card is inspired from a photograph that a friend of mine took while she was up in Yellowknife. Some great images that she caught with northern lights, and you can check that out on my blog. So basically what I'm just doing here is I'm using my picket fence blending brushes and just laying down all these different colors in almost like swipes and blending them all together back and forth to create a night sky look with some northern lights. And you want to get in there some really nice kind of brighter colors, some yellows and pinks, purples, even some blue in there. Today I stayed away from the pinks and I stuck more with the reds. On this first card I didn't put any at all though. So just really going back and forth and laying the colors down in almost like stripes and then blending them together slowly. I'm using that Brilliance Moonlight to give it that kind of light shimmery look, and I'll go back in with a thicker brush to kind of give my other card a bit of more of a kind of like a actual look of movement of the light look later on here. But as you can see, I've just really gone back and forth and blended those colors. Here's that big brush I was telling you about. It's a Ranger bristle brush, and it just kind of gives it a little bit thicker application of that Brilliance Moonlight. I trim this piece down in half here and I can create two cards out of this. Today I'm only going to use one. This stamp image is actually from just a card making kit. I think it was Card Making Magazine, Papercraft and Card Making Magazine that I got. It's just a silhouette image. I find the silhouette images work best with this kind of type of background because it typically is at night and you wouldn't actually have the details of your image, so this shadow worked well. I like the birds on the branch there. And then using my stamp platform, I stamped that down with Versamark ink, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of heat set that. I'm using almost like a crushed olive background piece of cardstock here. I'll add gel pen stars to it, and then I'm actually going to, once everything is all dry, I'm going to treat it with this distress paste here, and that'll help seal in the distressed inks and make sure that they don't reactivate if any water or anything gets on them. So you just apply that and then you gently buff off any extra, and that will seal your project nicely. So I've matted that piece on some black cardstock there, and then I will apply the whole thing onto my card base here. I do have to do the sentiment first though. So this sentiment is from, I believe it's from Cardabella. Again, I'll link that in my blog. Some great sentiments on there. This one is just says, as I say, I can't remember, it's been a while. It's the little things, I believe is what it says. So I'll stomp that down again with Versamark ink, and that really completes this first card. Yeah, it says it's the little things. And using that stamp platform allows me to get a nice crisp image. If it didn't stamp perfectly the first time, I can again restamp it in the same position. So I just adhere that panel to the card base, and then that finishes off the first card. So I'll give you a closer look at that. I love how the northern lights turned out on here, and that crushed olive piece of green cardstock in the background really brings out the green and yellow highlights in this card. So we're going to go ahead and go to our next card here, and this I'm going to do more of a landscape scene. I wanted the feeling of ground. Before it was like right up in the sky, we were like looking up at the sky. This I wanted more of a scene, so I started off with my greens and yellows and gave it kind of like the land hilly look there, and then I'll add in the yellows and reds for the sky. That green, again, all the inks are listed on my blog that I use, as well as kind of running down below there. So just going back and forth. I found also with this one, I used, after I applied them with my picket fence brushes, I went in to deepen the colors just with some finger daubers. So if I felt like it needed more of an intense color, the picket fence brushes are really great for blending the colors together and getting more of a soft look. But to get that intense look, I used the little finger daubers just to kind of really intensify those colors in certain areas. And then just going back and forth, bringing in that black soot to kind of deepen the sky there and blend it all together. Now it looks like a hot mess here, it really does, but the final product is really quite stunning. So hang with me here, it gets better. It's a lot of blending, and I've sped this up quite a bit, but it's so worth it. It's worth the time that you put into it. So again, using that Brilliance Moonlight White, and then I actually brought in I have a little cube of Hero, what is it, Unicorn White. And so I have this one brush here that I tried using to give kind of the swoop look, the look of light actually moving. And I wasn't happy with that one, so I brought in my Ranger brush here, a retractable brush, and this is that Hero Arts Unicorn White. And once I applied it with this brush, just kind of in swooping, it looks like I've ruined my project, but once you blend it out, it really looks beautiful. So I've got the little kind of swoops in there that looks like the light moving, and then I'm blending it with my Picket brush just to soften that. Just back and forth. It takes a little bit of time. Just work it until you get the look that you like. And I love how shimmery that is. Like when you move the card around, there's just such a beautiful shimmer to it. So once I'm done that, you really want this to dry. Like you want to make sure your inks are dry. I have this 3D block here of some trees, and I just removed the stamp from the block, and I will stamp it up here in my Stamp Perfect platform. Just laying it down to make sure that those trees are kind of anchored on that green hilly spot. And if you need to, if you remove your stamps from your block and they don't stick to your platform lid, just go ahead and add a little bit of removable adhesive to the back of your stamp, and it'll hold on there. But this one seemed to hold fine for me. Again, using that Versamark ink, it's a nice fine detail ink, and it seems to give me the results I like. I'll stamp that down. Again, with detailed stamps, I like to use a stamp platform because you can stamp multiple times if it didn't stamp perfectly. And I really quite like the look of that. Now again, I didn't let my background dry completely before I stamped this, so you'll actually see that it is still quite wet. That Versamark is not really soaking into the paper like it typically does. It's kind of sitting on top of that distress ink. So I hit it here with my heat gun to see if that'll help speed along the drying process. And then what I actually did is I decided, you know what, I definitely don't want to ruin my project at this point because I love how it looks, all that shimmery look, but you can see that those trees are still really wet. So what I did is I set this aside overnight, and then I came back to work on my sentiment. So here it is the next day. I've come back and I'm going to adhere this to a A2 sized card base here, not top folding, side folding but landscape, and I adhere that to my card. I always have troubles at this point. I'm always afraid I'm going to stick it down crooked. That's my biggest fear at this point, but I do get it on there straight eventually here. And then from here what I'm going to do is I decided I wanted to have a subtle sentiment on the bottom right hand side there in that kind of blank green space. So again, bringing in that Stamp Perfect to make sure I don't mess up my sentiment at this point, because that would make me cry for sure. And I'll adhere that down. And then the sentiment I used was actually from a Heffy Doodle. I think it's Interactively Yours. And the sentiment just simply says, you light up my life, I believe is what it says. And I thought that worked perfectly with the Northern Light type of theme. And I'm a bit off screen there, I apologize about that, but I wanted to make sure that I got it all lined up perfectly. Again, that Versamark ink. And I'll stamp that down. You light up my world is what that sentiment says. And that finishes off this card again, making sure that I let it dry. Here's a close-up look of that kind of light movement that I wanted to capture there. And then we'll take a look at the first card again that we made. And that finishes today's cards. I hope this has inspired you to create your own Northern Light themed cards. And I would like if you would hit the like button if you like this video. Go ahead and subscribe to make sure that you don't miss anything else. Everything is listed over on my blog, and I'll have that linked in the comments below. I want you all to have the great rest of the week, and we'll catch you next time.